Yappo Prof here, and we're gonna do a quick video for you all. I still have not done the portable monitor unboxing. Probably should. Still have not done this graphics card unboxing, and I think we will. This is gonna be a quick one. Move all the strippers out of the way. If you haven't seen the extended video on the new icon strippers that are based on some snap-on ones, and then these snips are actually the exact same as Knipex. Oh, I just realized it's way easier to take it out than I thought. I kept pulling. Open. Look at that. Wow, that makes a bunch of sense. Also recently had a video with Squares about the new pens. Look at that guy. That is not fake carbon fiber. That is real carbon fiber on there with DLC coated titanium. It is sharp, lightweight, and durable. And we got our Ultim in blue. So I was gonna do the music that just came in today, but we're gonna pop this open. Wow, didn't I do a good job there? I was gonna say, since I'm still kitted up from work, I got the new Tuck HD in yellow with the black clip. Like the winged ants that was in that box. Probably from when I brought it in from outside. Did get my grave of the fireflies. Still haven't ripped that. I got, I think something else is coming real soon here. I should just kind of, I'm not going to be installing this today because definitely don't have time for that. But what we have is the Onyx apparently Lumi. That might be a sub-brand. Onyx is owned by the same parent company as Sapphire, what I recall. Now, a lot of these brands have switched to being AMD or NVIDIA exclusive. I think that's why a lot of the brands have made new brands specifically for doing the Intel GPUs. Or in the case of like Acer, they can't become an NVIDIA partner, apparently. Very simple box. Intel Arc B580. This is going to be a secondary graphics card in my main system. I mainly want it for these AI engines, the acceleration. So it has like, granted, I didn't always have my 4070 Ti, but this does have their advanced media engine, which has AV1 in there. What I don't know is, does this still have the older school QuickSync? That's what I really want, because I have a bunch of stuff that could take advantage of QuickSync. And I've always wanted to be able to have an AMD CPU system that can take advantage of Intel QuickSync. And I think people tried that with the Arc 380, like the low end of the previous generation. I didn't hear too much about, but I have a kitten. You're gonna wreck my shirt. I was wondering. That is what just happened. Paisley Marie. Yeah, she's been missing me. It's like 2 a.m. and I just got back home. Work ran a wee bit late. Yeah, I know you want attention. Can I put you down, though? Yeah, you are legitimately gonna wreck my shirt. You're purring already. Yeah, I know. You're like, Elliot should be sitting with me, not doing these stupid videos. I'd actually argue some of the viewers agree with you. But yeah, so they say 8 gig system memory minimum, 16 recommended. They got 10 and 11. Realistically, for support, you should be using 11 because of direct storage support. 10 supposedly can do it, but it's not explicitly supported. Like, theoretically, they backported that to Windows 10. But it doesn't have native support of it. So, like, I think it's on a game-by-game basis. Think about DX12 in Windows 7. Like, 1 month before Windows 7 went EOL, DX12 was backported specifically for World of Warcraft. And that was for the Eastern market, I'm sure. There you go, resizable bar right on there. Here, 10th gen compatible or resizable bar and AMD 3000 or newer is what they're recommending. For the Intel Arc stuff, you definitely want to follow the requirements. They have built these cards assuming you have a newer system. So if you guys are thinking, like, I'm going to take an Intel 6th gen and chuck this in there, don't. Like, you are actually going to have a bad experience. Otherwise, though, these are supposed to be $250 cards. This is an overclocked one that I got for $300. I would consider nowadays $50 over MSRP of the base card to be within reason, especially with an overclocked model. Now you're like, oh, all they did was make it slightly faster. True. In this case, too, I could have gotten a non-overclocked model, but I think it was $10 cheaper. So my thought was, might as well. Also, if you noticed, originally I was talking about, and I should have got one on launch, because I could have. Realistically, for an acceleration card like this, a 5070 would have been fine. But I have, as much as we've been seeing the B580s getting restocked, and for the longest time, they were not at, especially the Gunner cards. The Gunner cards were at $400 on Newegg. When this Onyx one came back, and the fact that it was at $300, I think the non-overclocked one might have even went at $280 over Prime Day. So I could have saved $20. Or this one might have been $310, and the non-overclocked $300, and then Prime Day non-overclocked was $280. So if I would have waited a week and a half, 2 weeks, I could have gotten a little bit cheaper. Still, though, these are like just readily available and in stock finally. And what I would say is a reasonable price because it's within $50 of MSRP. I read that wrong. I was like, Xeno? What? Onyx. So you see they had room for a bigger card, and they may still have a higher one up in their stack, like a triple fan. This thing's got some chonk this way. And they did mention, I remember, with the B580 that it is chonk thick-wise too, a little bit, but it should still stay within technically a 2-slot spacing. Paisley, Kitten, I can't have your furry ass on the graphics card. No. Yeah. Give me a couple minutes. I gotta show the guys and gals out there. Like I said, I'm not gonna install it today. I may do a video on that because it's gonna go in the secondary slot on my motherboard. And I am worried about that causing interference with the network card that is below it, because that does protrude ever so slightly below. I'm hoping I can still make it work and not make it crash into things, because to be truthful, my 10 gig network card is far more important than this is to me. You can see how tiny that PCB is in there. That's like a bit over half the length, you know, because there's a whole pass-through cooler. There's a lot of frame around this cooler with this back plate that probably really isn't needed. That back plate may be plastic, not metal. It's got metal inserts. So yeah, I'm thinking a lot of this beef that's on here is literally just for show and not for, you know, for below. You know, decently beefy cooler though. These cards I kind of overbuilt for the performance they're currently getting. Nowhere near as bad as like the A770 was. Something to keep in mind too. Everybody's like, oh, you shouldn't buy an 8 gig card, blah 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 blah. The B580s are 12 gig cards, and at $300, like when I built my brother that PC that we used my old 3050 for, had this been available at the time, I might have used it. Now, a big reason why I might not have used it is I knew he was learning CAD with my dad. My dad wanted to use it for CAD-related things. I don't know what Intel Arc support of like SolidWorks and Fusion 360 and that sort of stuff looks like. Whereas I know NVIDIA, especially with the studio drivers, has great support. In fact, like certified support. So they do have professional Intel cards. I just haven't really heard about how good the support is or isn't. Also, these were not, back when we built that, I didn't even have a chance to buy one of these for, like I said, the only ones really available were the gunnier ones, and those were $400 plus. And or when you bought these, you had to buy like a motherboard or a PSU, or we had all that already figured out. So it's you know, could have done it there. That would have been a good opportunity, like your entry level but new system. So say, let's say $1,200 brand new and up. This would be a good card. You know, 12 to 1,500, that might be a good. 15, you're kind of getting, you probably get a better card in there. But, you know, depending, you know, RGB can add hundreds of dollars at that price. At any price, really. But that can significantly impact the price. And for some people, it is more important the way it looks than the way it performs. And you do actually have, some of you guys and gals watching are like, no, like, why would you even let them build that? I can give, and I wouldn't for the brother scenario, but for friends or friends of friends and or customers, you build them what they want. You know, there's a reason why, for example, every PC on Facebook Marketplace is RGB'd up to hell, and all of that was actually like just super cheap, like 3-fan kits off of Amazon for like $35 or whatever for a 3-fan RGB. And then they'll put like a 4th gen Dell motherboard in there and spruce it up. You know, it's got to look gamer, so it's gamer, even though it's, you know, they couldn't even take one of these cards. Either due to power, because it needs a 600 watt power supply, or because you need at least Gen 4x8, I believe. No, they want a 16X. Most motherboard or most graphics cards can do fine with a by 8. But you need the Gen 4 to really. I'm trying to think if 3000 series was Gen 4 or not. That might have been motherboard related. Like you'd have to have the X570 boards, not the X470 boards. you know, that's off the top of my head. Some of that is, not in the brain box anymore. But these have been showing great performance. I'm going to be throwing one in an AMD system with an NVIDIA graphics card, and this as a secondary, running my secondary monitors. That way I can run my main one. Because often, okay, NVIDIA says you can do 4. They freak out anytime you do more than 3. Right now I only have 3. I do want to add a little auxiliary display and maybe a TV up on the wall once I get back in the office. That's what we'll be running off of here. That way I can play some games if I want to using that GPU. I can also have this in there and play with acceleration, and that sort of stuff. Those of you saying, "Oh, I ran four monitors fine on NVIDIA." Not high enough resolution then, because on the 2000 and 3000 series, you could only run 2 that were 4K, higher than 4K 120 hertz, or equivalent bandwidth. So even though you had 3 DisplayPort ports, realistically only 2 of them could do, like I have 3 Asus monitors that are 144 hertz, 10-bit HDR, and they use the display stream compression because they're only they're only DisplayPort 1.4. Technically, only 2 of those would have ran at full bandwidth or really worked at all off of my 2080 Ti or my 3080 Ti. And that is why I would only run the main display off of that, and then I would often have some 1080p or 1200p auxiliary monitors in addition to those 4Ks. Those would go off of the NVIDIA card, or the main NVIDIA card, and then the secondary one, which was a 3050 for the longest time, would then run the other 2 that required that. Now, that's not a problem with the 4070 Ti. That's part of the reason why I went with it, and that has kind of made this less required, but I'm interested in getting it in there. If it doesn't fit, that's a whole fucking another question. Yeah, I'll probably have to like funkily mount the LAN adapter, or the 10 gig card. I've done it before, if you've seen any of my server builds. So hopefully you guys like this preview. It's a simple box, that is for sure. Nothing super premium about the cooler. Like I said, this is just the overclocked one in white, and you're like, well, you have a completely black build. Why don't you go with the black one? And with a $10 difference, I just went with the slightly quicker one. Had I waited I want to say a week and a half for Prime Day, who knows? Like last time these went in stock, they were out of stock within like the week. Or they'd mention on, LTT would mention on WAN show, like, oh, we got a stock back of 580s, and then like all that would be left is the $400 ones. Because, like I said, within $50 of MSRP, that's good. That's good. Obviously, you can still pay more for the 3-fan variants of this. You'd have to read your reviews and see if it's even worth it. I don't know if... So, like, I would argue in many cases buying an FTW or an FTW3 variant of an EVGA card would be worth it if you're above, say, like a 70 tier NVIDIA card and up at a minimum. Because in some cases, we've seen 20+% from overclocking. Whereas when I get the Zotac cards I get now, because they're the only ones that make a reasonable sized graphics card, those are barely, when overclocked, hitting the upper end of the average in 3D Mark. And that's when overclocked. Like when not overclocked, the Zotac cards seem to be bang in the middle, like bang average, or even a touch low. But like I said, currently Zotac is, at least in the NVIDIA side, the only one making, like, even this size card for NVIDIA right now would be considered small. Now, NVIDIA has started the SFF compatible cards, which is small form factor. Last time around with those, Asus, I believe the ProArt line was the only ones that met that. And they actually charged a premium in some cases, like $100 more than like this card to get that. Even though they're making a smaller card theoretically with less metal, less etc. Maybe they have to engineer it more. They think they're going to sell less of them, and that's what you're paying for. But watch out, they do have SFF cards. For those wondering, SFF cards are actually just the size of, let me grab it over here. They're basically the size of a 1080. So it's a 2-slot, like a true 2-slot, like within the 2-slot. See how this is not just barely over the 2-slot? It is just barely under the 2-slot. I believe even stock Intel, though, the B580 is just over that 2-slot, and there is a little bit of breathing room on PCIe slots between the slots, so we're using that up with the 580 over there. But the SFF, like even that's a 1650 that's going to be going into my server now that I have the adapter for the front IO. Massive compared to that. So that's closer to what where the 580 is, that the B580. It might even be a little bit bigger than that, but yeah, that's the lowest end card, I think, at the time. And it's still got that massive cooler. You know, down here is a 980. That's pretty much the same thing. So the SFF cards, they might be, that's 10.5 inches. I think they might be 11 now, but they're still in that sort of standard 2-slot PCI height, you know, effectively as close as you can get to that. Some with 2 fans, a bunch were 3 though, probably because they have to use the smaller diameter fans. So that is something to watch out for if you're on the NVIDIA side, is they are starting to make small form factor. It's not like an ITX sized. Back in the day, the ITX sized would basically not be longer either than sometimes than the PCI Express slot, but often longer than the ITX board because of how compact the original ITX cases were. Peasy, what were you up to? Oh, you're not going to scratch for the people on the camera? No. Well, that's a bummer. Alright. Well, wish me luck. Hopefully we can cram that in there without too much of a mess. And maybe I'll make a video about that. It's looking even bigger. I thought it was just a little bit around the fans that extended past that PCI Express, but that really looks to be like a 2.25x slot. And with how much of a bitch it is to return these to Newegg, we may have to make it work, you know. So hopefully we'll see in the next one where we're taking a look at some Japanese music that came in and commenting on that. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.